I want to show you what it looks like when somebody cannot admit being wrong, the height of intellectual arrogance and the failure of admission of culpability or being incorrect on a subject. And this is somebody that when I first heard speak, I originally detected, I thought, a twinge of arrogance. But the more I listened to him, the more I agreed with his views. And I said, well, I think I was wrong about that one. But now, once again, Sam Harris, who developed Trump derangement syndrome to the extreme, where he states that he values free speech and that it should be a human right, but he agrees when Twitter denies and takes away Trump's right to speak and is in favor of Twitter and the left wing media pulling a total scam and basically stealing the election from Donald Trump by denying the public access to the Hunter Biden laptop story and denying it. He believes it's okay to lie about things. And so he has Trump derangement syndrome. And once again, he cannot admit when he gets something wrong. And here we're talking about COVID. So I want you to listen to a recording of Sam discussing things. And I'm going to chime in on occasion, but it's bizarre to listen to this mighty mind fallen so low. But really, again, it's about the failure to admit when we're wrong about something. And Sam is conveying this in the most arrogant of terms. So here we go.
Take it back to COVID for a second. In one way, we got very lucky that COVID wasn't worse than it was, right? You know, it could have been much, much worse. Could have been 10 times as deadly or 50 times as deadly. And we would have lived through, or many of us wouldn't have lived through something truly awful. But had COVID been worse, just enough worse to really get our attention, to really be undeniable, we would have had a different political conversation around it. There wouldn't have been the same kind of vaccine skepticism. Bret Weinstein would not have been releasing 80 straight podcasts on the dangers of the vaccine if a few variables were changed. I mean, just take that look.
It amazes me that Sam continues to harp back on Bret Weinstein, who I listen to on a regular basis. In fact, everything that he does. And he is able to critique Bret for discussing whether or not the COVID vaccines are efficacious, whether or not there's some danger in them. And Sam, of course, thinks that we need to believe the narrative that he subscribes to and that Bret should be denied the ability to speak about it because it's just too dangerous, akin, once again, to Donald Trump. It amazes me because Bret has been beyond gracious with Sam on this aspect and has invited Sam to discuss things with him, and Sam has refused, yet he continues to sully Bret's name. Okay, that's a side note. That's more personal than anything. Let's continue.
Leave COVID exactly as it is, but just make it preferentially dangerous to children rather than to old people, right? You just flip that around, the variable of age. If kids were dying by the hundreds of thousands from COVID at a rate of whatever it was, 1%, say, but if it was pretty much all kids, we would have had a very different experience, right? And the patience, that there would have been no fucking patience for vaccine skepticism, right? And everyone would have recognized that this is not my body, my choice. This is, you're not going to kill my kids with your ignorance, right?
I'm sorry, Sam. Who exactly were killed? I mean, the variables changing, but the variables weren't this. So it's a completely different discussion. I mean, that's like saying if cobras weren't incredibly venomous, they'd make the perfect childhood pet and babies would be cuddling with them. They'd replace dogs. We'd be having a completely different conversation about pets. I mean, if people didn't die jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge, it would make a thrilling leap for people that wanted to cool themselves off in the San Francisco Bay. You just change that variable, you have a gold mine and a tourist industry. I mean, if it wasn't cold, the North Pole would make an amazing vacation spot. But Sam, it's not. These are variables that didn't take place. And that is why in the North Pole, Santa Claus pays a very cheap rent. Continuing.
And you change one other variable. What if the vaccines actually really did block transmission much better than they in fact did? Right. And there was a moment where it was only rational to expect them to block transmission. Turns out they don't do it nearly as much as we would hope at this point.
Why? Because the public health authorities told us that this was the case, that the everything that they've told us has been wrong, that it would block transmission, that it would prevent you from getting the disease. They told us all these things, and it was wrong because it was very predictable, once again, that the vaccine was going to mutate because it was targeted. And I got a strike on YouTube for stating this, that the spike protein was a very narrowly targeted aspect of the COVID vaccine, as opposed to a vaccine for polio, where you get the whole attenuated virus into your system, or the dead virus, and the body can make a complete replica, a copy of this. So one individual mutation of the virus might go and not be able to slip by the body's defense system. But when you target only one aspect of it, which is what these vaccines did, yeah, a change in the virus is very likely. So, Sam, you're not taking into account, if that one variable had changed, maybe we would be having a different discussion, but it wasn't, and it was predictable, and you didn't predict it.
They just shorten the window by which, during which transmission is possible. If they're even doing that now, I don't know.
Okay, granted.
But let's say the vaccines really did block transmission, but then nothing else was, all of the other mishigas about how, untested they are and how dangerous they yet might be, and the spike protein and blah, blah, blah. Leave all that in place. Just give me a little more transmission blockage and give me kids being preferentially killed or injured by this disease. The obscenity of much of what was said, much of what was said about COVID at the time at which it was said, the conspiracy thinking, the platforming of people who were.
And by the way, this at the time thing is something that we are going to hear over and over. But at the time, well, there were some people that were able to prognosticate better. And what is it, luck that these people that are incredibly intelligent were able to predict better than those who had a vested interest, a financial interest in masking what COVID did? Oh, all the people that said it might be a leak from the lab that were demonized by the media, including Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, who was raked over the coals by the mainstream media. Oh, we're supposed to forget all that because they got it right and you got it wrong. So go fuck yourself, Sam Harris, and everybody that did that. And you want us to forget about that? And now you're telling us, well, you should have just listened to us anyways because we're the science and we got it right. No, you got shit wrong.
Obviously unwell and unbalanced, professionally and mentally.
I think you're talking about yourself right vaccines, now, Sam.
And their skepticism.
Yeah,
the
we're
patience
skeptical
for that
because we were right.
Been non-existent. Right. And so in some sense, we got unlucky at how benign this was and how mysterious it could yet seem. Because
he just said that we got unlucky as to how benign it was. We got unlucky that the nuclear bomb fell and didn't detonate because we didn't learn our lesson. Oh, yeah, we got unlucky that you got AIDS because you behaved in a manner that I don't appreciate, and then you were cured by AZT, or it was minimized. It was unlucky that COVID wasn't more serious, is what he just stated. And that tells you his state of mind. And this illustrates the absolute arrogance that he has, because everybody should have listened to the smart people, which he includes himself, and everybody that just got lucky because of a few different variables had changed. Yeah, all right, Sam, what, if the tree had fallen 5 inches, it would have killed you. How unlucky you got because you didn't learn your lesson. Continuing.
Yeah, you could run the argument. Well, did he die from COVID or with COVID? He was 80 years old, right? That was the situation we were in. I'm saying that there are changes in the real world that could have happened and could yet happen that would have been immensely clarifying, right? And there would have been no less. What
is clarifying is your arrogance. and your ability to try to whitewash the fact that you were wrong and continue to harp on Bret Weinstein. I used to think that you were an intellectual giant, Sam. I apologize for that. I was wrong. You see, I can admit it.
I'm just asking questions routine would have not gotten anyone anywhere worth going, right? And that's I think so to part of what we're talking about here is with respect to Trump and with respect to COVID.
Oh, he brings it back to Trump,
are
right?
just contingent facts of these
TDS.
Unique situations, which had they been a little bit different, we wouldn't have fragmented in the same way, right? You dial up the risk of COVID, or if COVID just had been, just made you physically ugly, right? Like if COVID was monkeypox, right, and you had pustules on your face, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's different than the hypothetical experience we all had of is it a cold? Is it a flu? Is it COVID? Who knows? Like we just. I'm not saying I wish for those things because those are pictures of worse suffering for people. But had those things been in place, I just don't think we would have witnessed the same kind of shattering of our society around this particular variable. And
okay, you know what contributes to the shattering of society? When people mandate, like you, that we must take something that is not safe. You see, all of the vaccine companies, the pharmaceutical industry, came out and told us that it was for certain safe. Well, gee, I think that they might have gotten that wrong, along with the fact that it would prevent transmission and that it would prevent you from getting the disease. And the thing is that if they had told me that it would prevent transmission and disease, I could have believed that. And that could have still be true. But the idea that they knew it was safe, something that was new and novel, was absolutely unprovable. So from the outset, you are asking us to take what is a lie, propaganda, and marketing for a drug that is absolutely unprovable and has in fact been disproven. So go F yourself once again, Sam.
Again, so I pivot back to the possibility that if we could get a more normal Republican candidate who was not not at the center of a personality cult built on misinformation, there could be a swing back to something more recognizable that doesn't seem like a social emergency. But I grant
once again,
that I do
Trump
feel
is
like
we
are in the presence of a social emergency.
Yeah, because of Trump, because of you, because of the people that mandated the vaccine.
Could something other than talking about it be the process by which we overcome it?
Okay, once again, what we have seen here is the intellectual arrogance of Sam Harris. He continues to bag on Bret Weinstein. He stated he wishes that it had been worse. We got unlucky that it was so benign, I believe is what he stated, because we should all be falling into line with the system, with all the really smart people that got every fucking thing wrong regarding this disease, regarding the vaccine, regarding the origin of it, and the failure to allow us to talk. Hey, Sam, do you think that has anything to do with the free speech that you invited to be taken and stripped away from the sitting president of the United States because we are in a social emergency, a political emergency that necessitated that, according to you? You arrogant person. You don't understand that when you do take one such action, that it leads to others. And then they became self-righteous and they stripped everybody of their ability to debate the vaccines, to debate the disease. And you will be called racist for stating that it might have originated from the Wuhan laboratory. And Sam Harris, you have fallen off of the plateau of intellectual hero for not only me, but many people around the world. Perhaps you've jumped off of the San Francisco Bridge into the Trump derangement ocean, where so many once sane people have gone, and you invite the system that will repress human thought with freedom of speech, with mandates, with the need to go along with the science when every one of you were wrong.